guys, we're back at Saviano's for our new show, Saviano Sit Down. I'm Jack, this is Anthony, and we have tonight the most unbelievable guest, someone who I'm so excited to share with you guys, someone who's been very close to me over the years, as just an influence, someone I can go to that I know that I could trust. Miss Julianne Allen. She just came out with her second book, The Battle Worth Fighting, Raising Faith-Guided Children in a Single-Parent Home. It's a mouthful for me. It was hard to remember. But I'm so happy to have this time with you guys. And we get to share with you guys kind of how we met, our relationship, and some of the things that Miss Allen is doing in the community still. And we'll get right into it. So, Miss Allen, do you want to tell us how we know each other?
Well, yeah, I've known you guys since you were 12, something like that.
Yeah,
Both y'all went through my choir program where I teach. I'm still teaching at Heritage Middle School, but y'all both went through that. And then I found out, because you were my student, that Saviano's existed, and so we started coming here as a family. And my daughter, who's now married and living halfway around the world, her favorite place to go was Saviano's and have baked ziti. I got and as soon as she could use a fork, man, she was here. And we would come in and sit down, and your mom would sit and dote all over Carly Ann, and we just always felt so welcome. And it just became, I mean, the families just blended together and connected, and we've just been close ever since.
Over 20 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Isn't that crazy?
When you have these relationships that long, it's they become so valuable and special. Anthony was actually talking this morning to me how he was during 9/11. You were.
Yeah, I was actually in the class room.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That day, and I was in choir, and I remember being pulled in. I'm not entirely sure of the whole thing, but maybe we'll go through it. But someone, whether it be the piano guy, I'm sorry,
I was the accompanist at the time.
Right?
Yeah.
He brought me into the office and asked me if I needed to make a phone call to New York.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really stood out to me. I remember you and Jack had such a strong bond.
We always did have a strong bond. I always felt that I could come to your office and I had somebody I could trust. And when you're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it's kind of a weird, awkward time for.
Oh, it is. I have been teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th graders for 27 years now, and it is still a weird, awkward time for them. I mean, it's just their whole existence is, am I okay? And I love being in a place where I can say, yes, you are okay, and kind of guide them through. I like middle school because it's like the intersection of life, and they come to that intersection, and some kids want to turn the wrong way, and I have a chance to say, no, go this way instead. Yeah. And I love that about where God has put me in that, because I really feel like I'm doing exactly what I was designed to do. And I think a lot of people don't get a chance to do that. They don't get a chance to feel like they are doing what they were designed for. But, I mean, it really makes my heart sing when I see people like y'all all grown up and married and kids, and life is good, and you put a piano in your restaurant. And I feel like I had something to do with some of the direction you went.
Definitely.
You did. You did.
Still do, even 20 years after the fact.
Of course.
And it was just, I don't know, I love getting to feel like I have that place in kids' lives, because it was a hard time for me when I was in junior high, and I think everybody struggles with it. And so it's a really important place to be for kids. And I love that you say, you remember that you felt like you could come and talk to me, because I try very hard to make it a safe place where they feel like they have trust and they have someone who genuinely cares. And that's, I think, what I was designed to do.
So you've influenced so many young people in this age group through Heritage Middle School. Now you have moved on to influencing, your sphere of influence has grown dramatically. You were mentioning that you are a teacher in women's groups and going on retreats and that sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about that.
What happened was, right after 9/11. At the time that 9/11 happened, I was pregnant with my son. And so, yeah, I remember that September vividly because my son was born just a couple of weeks later.
Oh, that might have been the break that I was thinking of then.
Yeah. And then,
okay, that makes sense.
And so then I was out that fall in September, October, November for maternity leave because the baby was born.
Yeah.
And then the next spring, in that spring semester right after the Christmas holidays, I was widowed. And I was out again for much of that time for bereavement leave. So it was a rough school year. Your 7th grade year was a rough one. And anyway, after getting through all of that, I felt very convicted to write the You Only Think God Is Silent. And
which my wife and I have read. We love this book. It's
Thank you.
I love the title of it. I love everything about this book. I love that reading this book and knowing you. The correlation is it's uncanny. You know that this is you. Your heart on in paper.
Yeah, if it makes any difference, really, being a part of that group when you were gone, I still felt like you handled that with such grace, as much grace as you could possibly have, and I can't imagine the feeling. So,
thank you.
That's something I just realized was that you got the Miss Allen that was different, but even though you still were just tremendous when you were available, and you made your presence known. So maybe that's why I feel the way that I feel in a different way, maybe. But this book, to have it put the way you just said it, was fantastic.
You just mentioned that when you were widowed, okay?
Yeah.
The battle worth fighting. Through this book, one of the themes I've noticed is the David and Goliath references.
Yes.
Okay? Would you just go through, because it's not one Goliath. You had a huge Goliath in your life. How did you get past the first one and then onto the other ones?
Well, I think the first one obviously was, and that's really what the You Only Think God Is Silent is about, is learning that God was not silent. I was not alone. He carried me through that first couple of years was just, it was horrendous. I would not wish what I went through on my worst enemy. It was horrible. Losing your spouse is just there aren't words. There simply are not words. You love your spouse so much, and there's such a bond there. This is the person that knows you, knows everything about you, and loves you anyway, and they're gone. And then I've got these 2 children that are counting on me. So I think the first part was getting just through the fact that he was gone, and I had to figure out how to get up in the morning and go to work and be a mom and grieve and help my kids grieve. And once we got through kind of that part, then I started realizing that the Goliaths, they kind of just kept coming. First it was that, how to just figure out what school to send my son to when I realized that he was dyslexic, and do I keep him in private school or send him to public school because he needed the private school style of learning but the public school dyslexia help, and what do I do? And I didn't have somebody to talk through what to do. That partner that you go home to and you bounce things off of and they listen to you, and I didn't have that. And so I had to turn to God. And then there was the loneliness, and then there was the, what to do with the teen years with a daughter, and now what to do with the teen years with a son, and all of those things, one after another, they keep coming. But every single time, if I count on God to guide me and to guide us, my children and me, we get through it. And the outcome has become something I think is amazing. Of course, I'm talking about my own kids. So, of course, I think they're amazing.
And they are.
But the outcome is really remarkable, and I felt like God put it on my heart to put that in writing too. And it's not like oh, I've done all these things right. There's some real good stories on myself in this book about what a lousy cook I am. This is why we come to Saviano so much, because I really can't cook. So yes, Big ziti and everything else. You know, if I want good chicken parmesan, this is where I am. But it's also, you know, just other things like learning to ask your children for forgiveness when you mess up, so that they can understand how God feels when he extends grace to us. They know that to forgive genuinely restores and feels good. And so then they can accept the forgiveness as well. You know, I think a lot of parents think that they have to be perfect for their children.
We try.
It's like, my kids don't need me perfect, they need me real. And when I mess up, and I had some good mess ups, I have to look at my kids and say, you know what? I blew that, and I'm sorry, and I hope you can forgive me. And then they learn that it's okay to also say, I hope you can forgive me when they mess up, especially that they can turn to their Heavenly Father and say that. And lessons like that, you know, they're so valuable that the Goliaths just kind of disappear, and it's like, I don't even feel like I'm having to throw the stones anymore. The Goliaths pop up and go away just as soon as we pray about it.
You think that you've become, you lean on him, you're reliant on God, and it becomes natural that, you know, whenever something big or small pops up, you're able to automatically lean on him. And
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is more natural for me to accredit good outcomes, blessings, situations, even when you called and asked if I could come and talk to you. It is so much more natural for me to say that was a God thing than for me to try to put reason or logic, or reason and logic fail us every time. Science fails us. I mean, as much as people go, oh, no, follow the science. Yeah, you follow the science until you get
to God.
Yeah, until you get to God. Exactly. Or until you get to that point where the science breaks down. I have a very dear friend who was just widowed a few months ago. She got the coroner's report a couple of days ago. They can't discover what the cause of death was. They can't give her definition.
wow.
And she's a scientist. And she's like, I don't understand why I can't get an answer. And I'm like, because we're not God.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to say, I'm not going to understand.
You have a hard time doing that, by the way. Sorry.
Well, I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
I think that the human condition is we want answers. We want it to be logical. We want it to fit in our box. We want to be able to put a name on it and make it all just so. And sometimes it's not. And I think my life is really, it's not. And it did not fit in the box I intended it to be in. I'm not in the place I intended to be in. I thought I would be teaching and being a music minister at a church and having a 50th wedding anniversary and all of those things. And instead, I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and I'm doing a speaking ministry and writing, and yeah, it's just...
Did you ever see, before Elin passed, did you ever see yourself being an author?
No. No. And in fact, when people say, are you going to write a 3rd book?
I remember you always saying that Elin used to read the dictionary, and anybody who's watching this knows you, went to your class, they know that you used to tell everybody that.
Oh, yes.
So you think he'd probably be helping you with this if you were?
Oh, and I so wish he could, because I'm dyslexic. With this one, when the publisher first came out, they said, well, we need like an introduction, a preface, and I'm like, books have introductions? And they're like, have you read a book? And I'm like, not recently, no. I mean, I'm not, I wish I could say I'm a reader. I see books and I go, that looks so interesting. And I even buy them. And then, I'm not so good about actually reading.
They get shelved.
Yeah. I'm not so good about actually reading. So, yeah. No, I would have never in a million years told you that I would publish not one but 2 books.
But that just goes to show you the art of the Lord.
Yeah.
When he draws a canvas and he's got his paintbrush out, sometimes he might break your leg if he's the true shepherd he is. He'll break legs to get you to go where he wants you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and I think that he also, and I wrote about this in You Only Think God Is Silent. I think things happen that are not necessarily the hand of God. We live in a fallen world, and so you can't say, hey, everything that happens, no. Some things happen because of free will of other people, and those are maybe people who are not following God's will. What took my husband was an accident. That's what took it. It was not God's hand. And that's really why I wrote it, is because so many people would say things like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. Well, you indicate with that the reason is that God wanted it to happen. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that God wanted me raising those 2 kids alone. But I also don't think that he sat up in heaven going, oh no, what will I do now? I mean, he knew. He was like, okay. And so now this is where I'm taking you, child. I can now turn you this direction, and now we'll go that direction, and follow me. And just one step at a time, and I will lead you into the coolest places. And I've had some of the neatest adventures with my kids, and things I would have never told you that, I'm going to be doing women's conferences and inspirational speaking and sharing with people about how good God is. I would have never in a million years imagined that I would be doing those things.
You are.
And it's so fun. I mean, it's really exciting.
I can see in your face. She's vibrant.
This is why I love being around you, is because
I could feel it.
Even when we're not doing something like this is how you are all the time. I get the same Julianne, Miss Allen that I always get. And that's I love it. I just love it. I'm so thankful for this time.
Well, God is good.
Yes.
You know? And there are so many things that are so worth being excited about. In the last chapter of You Only Think God Is Silent, I put when I tell people that I've been widowed, they always I'm sorry. It's like, don't pity me. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I want people to look at me and go, wow, how cool that God can bring so much joy and life and happiness out of what is a sad and really desperate situation.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I hope it's not a stupid one, but
no, do ask.
Having known Elin and being a father myself of 2 little ones now, Anthony as well, I wonder if the same questions popped into anybody else's head that who is a dad, a young dad. And what happened to Elin was a tragedy. It was a surprise, a freak accident, which could happen to anybody, and we all know that. Do you think that Elin would have known that God's hands would have been on your children and you if a tragedy was going to happen to him?
Oh yeah,
I believe the same thing.
He was a very faith-driven, godly man. He was the spiritual leader in our home. Yes, I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, he absolutely knew whose we all were. And so I don't think he sat up in heaven worrying about what was going to happen to us.
He knew it. It was going to be okay.
He knew that God had it. He knew God had
more than
us.
okay. Great.
Yeah. I mean, God's got us, and I know it. And that doesn't mean I don't ever worry. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there have been numerous moments where I've worried. I worry about my kids. I worry about their happiness. My daughter living over on the island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean. It's not even it's a developing country. It's not, okay, that's like its designation. We're not talking first world here. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
It's a little scary. So do I worry? Yeah. I've often said my kids really strengthen my prayer life. You know,
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
Really?
when Chase was little, he was like, you know, when you see it, climb it. You know, he definitely strengthened my prayer life. But you know, it's yeah, I worry, but I don't worry. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I know that God's got us.
Okay, so having been cramming this book, like I told you
Uh-huh.
earlier, one of the things that I picked up on was co-parenting with God. And when I first, co-parenting with God, when I first saw it, I was like, that's kind of weird. You know, I grew up in church, I get it.
Yeah.
But co-parenting with God, and I started getting into it a little bit more, and I realized that this book is not only for single parents. It's not only for single parents.
Right.
Me and my wife can take stuff from that you've written in here and incorporate and make God the center of the triangle of raising our children.
Yeah.
You know? And
Well, and I think that the part that put me in the co-parenting with God concept was right after I was widowed, and I'm looking at these two young children. My son was 5 months old at the time. And I'm thinking, how am I going to raise a boy without his dad? You know, I mean, how do you do this? And you and I, one time when I was here eating, had a conversation about how special your relationship is with your daughter. And how emotionally you guys connect on. I think that's a father-daughter thing,
It
you know?
is.
And as soon as I knew that my daughter had lost her daddy, I mean, my heart broke. I was like, there are things that she needs from her daddy I cannot give her, no matter how hard I try. And that's when I actually read books crazy. I was reading all sorts of books from Christian perspectives on parenting and on kids. And there were two books that really came out and stood out to me. And they both talked about teaching your children to seek God as the ultimate authority in their lives and to seek God as the ultimate affirmation in their lives. And I immediately went, that made sense to me. Not, I can't get their dad back. I can't try to make their dad be present when he's not. So what am I going to do? So I taught my children to look to God as their daddy. And for my daughter to hear God being the one that would say, you are beautiful, you are amazing. All of those things that a little girl needs from her daddy, she could learn to get from God. And for a guy, you know, it's like, who taught you how to do this restaurant? Your dad did. I watched him teach you when you were a kid and I was in here eating, you know. He taught you. Who teaches you how to be a man? Well, for my son, it's God. God has taught him to be a man. God has told him, you have what it takes, son. He hears that from God. And so that makes me co-parenting with God. And if I run all my questions by God, you know, what school do I send my son to? And I feel at peace with one of them. What college should my daughter choose? And she and I both feel totally at peace with one specific school. There's the answer.
you got it.
You know, and so yes, I think even though it sounds kind of odd, it is. As for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord, and God is the head of the household, and you want Him to be the head of your household too.
Listening to you makes me want to make him more the head of my household, and hearing what you're talking about. And that's what you do. That's what you do for me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Was there ever a moment of, I know for a lot of people, including myself, the surrender sometimes is the hardest part of giving in. And there's just something about letting all of it go to Him. Was there a point that you can remember in your story?
Was there a power? I think we was asking, was there a control grab in the beginning? Were you trying to control everything, or did you completely right from the beginning say, I can't?
Well, no, I mean, and I talk about that in You Only Think God Is Silent. Before I was widowed, I was a control freak. I was all type A, here's my list, and I'm going to accomplish these things, and I have my goals and my 5-year plan and my 10-year plan, and I was totally one of those people. Totally. And yeah, the moment when I went, I got to give it all to you, God, was the day my husband didn't come home from work. And that was when I went, I can't do this. And I was a faith-filled person prior to that.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but I have to make the designation between I was not a God-dependent person. I was an independent person. I was a can-do kind of gal. And now I'm a God can-do kind of gal. And there's a difference. And one is that I'm going where I'm led, whereas the other is I'm leading and I hope God's with me.
There you go.
And I want God with me. But now I'm going to go where I'm led.
That's where you need to be.
Yeah. And it's hard, and I don't know if I would have ever gotten there without tragedy. I hope and pray for you all that you never have to experience tragedy.
That's kind of where I was going. I was trying to be proactive on this. Because,
exactly.
Sometimes it requires a wake up. And,
it does.
You might be saying, I love you, Lord, I love you, Lord, I love you, Lord. But if you're not giving control and you're not giving I'm not saying that he will do something to smite you. No. I'm saying that, don't wake up.
It's hard.
Don't surrender.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Let go now.
It doesn't take
just let go now.
something crazy to happen to wake up.
Surrender.
Yeah.
Great
but
point,
I
Anthony.
think we do have that tendency to go, but I've got this.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's where I'm at. Yeah.
I'm like, I love you.
But I got this.
But I got it.
And I think some of it is in coming to grips with. I think sometimes we think certain things are too small for God. I don't need to take that one to God and that one to God because that's just a little thing. I'll wait and I'll take God the big stuff. But you see, I learned because I was literally so broken that I don't even know how I got through the days at first. I really don't. I can remember things like not even being able to pick out what clothes to wear. And I would look in my closet and there'd be one outfit that would come into focus. And I would be like, okay, I'll wear that. And it would be what worked that day for whatever was going on. And I learned that there's really nothing too small for God to handle. When people are like, oh, well, don't pray for something like a good parking place when you're running late. Why not? You really think God can't handle that? You think God's too busy for the small stuff? God's not too busy for the small stuff. He's got the big stuff, the small stuff, and everything in between. He just wants us to trust him. I mean, it's like, is there anything you wouldn't do for your children? Is there anything you wouldn't cover for your kids? Then take it to God just like that. And when you say to your children, I'll handle that for you, do you want them handling parts of it, or do you want them just going, thanks, Daddy?
Great point.
And that's where God is,
Church with Julianne Allen. I love it.
Hard, man. I love that.
Guys, I want to wrap this up here by showing the books again. We re-released this last year.
Yes.
And we had this is out on Amazon.
Yes.
Okay.
And through the publisher library both.
Publisher,
Yeah.
do we want to say their name?
Yeah, Westbow Press.
Westbow Press, publisher
Yeah.
on the books. We have You Only Think God Is Silent. And we have The Battle Worth Fighting, Raising Faith-Guided Children in a Single-Parent Home. I can't wait to get into this more. I can't thank you enough for coming tonight. What a special night we've had together, guys. And the third book, on this rate, the third book should be out in 2019, 2020?
Whenever God tells me to write it.
There you
And
go.
until then...
Can we get together for another show?
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you back.
I would love to come back. Well, I love coming here. So.
Thank you. Guys, thanks for watching this evening. Julianne Allen again, Heritage Middle School in Colleyville. Just really, really special. Thanks so much. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks, guys.